you're not too late. I think a lot of people think YouTube is super saturated now. When I was starting out making YouTube videos, I didn't really know how to do that effectively. If you go back to my initial videos on my channel, it was literally just me with my iPhone 10, a $5 stand, just recording 3-4 minute videos. I just tried to do that as much as possible and kind of just trusted that.
Hey Connor, great to have you on this call.
Good to be with you, man.
Yeah, and first of all, congratulations on hitting 10,000 subscribers. I think it's exactly first of this month, I believe. That's amazing to see. I think the purpose of this call is to sort of go over your experience and what went into actually building this channel, and share some golden nuggets for people who are actively trying to build, coaches, creators who are actively trying to build their own personal brand and expand their channel. So I think you can get started with your personal introduction on your sort of who you work with, what you do, and what your channel is about.
Yeah, so I work in tech sales. That's what I've done for about the last 7 years, and I worked full-time, still do to this day, but I worked full-time for about 5 years before ever getting on YouTube, and I was in a management role coaching a lot of people, and I started getting a lot of feedback from some of the techniques I was teaching around things like cold calling, emailing, etc. Like, hey, have you ever considered doing this outside work? So I was like, you know what? Enough people have said this to me, so I'm just going to post a YouTube video. So I didn't really go in with a strategic plan. If you go back to my initial videos on my channel, it was literally just me with my iPhone 10, a $5 stand, just recording 3-4 minute videos. I just tried to do that as much as possible and kind of just trusted that over time I'll nail down a process and get more strategic with this. But at first it was just making videos. So that's what I still do. I make videos for salespeople. I have a focus on tech sales, but it's a lot of people just in sales in general who want to get better at things like cold calling, emailing, running discovery calls, strategically planning their territory, things like that.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's one of the most impressive part is how you started off, like you said, with just a mobile stand and a phone. But I think what really made it go big is the actual value that you were providing in the channel. So if you were to think about the whole journey, what would you say contributed to this success? What are the key contributors? And if you could turn that into a sort of a blueprint on how someone can form a successful strategy for YouTube.
Yeah, I think it comes in phases. So phase one is kind of what I just described, where I had no YouTube or social media, anything experience. I didn't know how to make a video. Phase one was just make a lot of videos. I knew what I was saying was valuable from the feedback I had from the real world, but value doesn't immediately translate to success on YouTube, which is something I learned beyond phase one. But phase one was just getting the reps in. Phase two was starting. That's where you really came in. I think I started working with you when I was around 1,000 to 1,500 subscribers, maybe. I could see patterns as to what was working, which videos and topics my audience was interested in, but I had a packaging issue. I still wasn't even making thumbnails at that point. I was literally just taking the YouTube recommended thumbnails and things like that. So phase one was really get your reps in. Phase two is sort of identify what's working, where am I falling short, where can I use other people to leverage my time better. And one area I was just really not good at in how I started working with you was I wasn't good at making thumbnails. I hated making thumbnails. I hated recording the videos, editing them, and then having to sit down and make a thumbnail. So it was but that's so important. So that's when I started working with you and how we started working together, and immediately the results started improving, especially from a click-through rate perspective. But yeah, that was really phase two, was start to identify what was working, what was not, patterns. And then phase three, which is still the phase I feel like I'm in, is starting to systematize a lot of the work. So from things like when I'm going to post, whether it's going to be a super long form video or more of a shorter, 7 to 15 minute video, the types of topics that my audience wants to see more of, and just doubling down on those patterns that are working and continuing to leverage people like you and maximizing my output. So that's where I feel like I'm at now. Is phase one was get the reps in. Phase two is start to identify some patterns and start working with people to better leverage my time. And then phase three, where I'm at now, is continuing to optimize and more systematize my work so that it's more scalable.
Yeah, I definitely agree on one thing you mentioned is identifying patterns as you sort of try ideas and figure out what works, what doesn't. But when it comes to this aspect, one of the biggest challenges entrepreneurs have is coming up with ideas that they are sort of certain that it would work. But what's your process in sort of figuring out what topics has, if not you're certain, but has high potential for performance?
Yeah. I really just listen to my audience. Like, I'm not trying to come up with this stuff myself. I put in the reps and I'm like, which videos are performing better? Which videos do I see my audience in the comments literally saying more of this, or they're asking me for certain topics. Sometimes I put out polls on my channel, like what topics do you want to see more of? And you can get a good sense of they want more videos on cold emailing, or I have an option where it's like comment below. And if I start to see people requesting certain topics, but really it's the feedback of which videos are performing best and doubling down on that. Like, one observation I made when I started out, my topics were very narrow. It was like, I don't know, how to improve your tonality on cold calls, where those were narrow, but people liked the more broader topics, like the ultimate guide to cold calling in 2025, where tonality was maybe just a feature or a piece of that video, but they want 10 different topics combined into one video is what I've noticed. And if you look at my channel now, I'm sort of doubling down. Like, my average length of a video used to be 5 to 8 minutes, and now it's like 30 to 50 minutes, where I'm essentially just combining a bunch of topics into one video. That's what I've noticed on my channel. But yeah, the main way is just what is the audience feedback. But the only way to get to that point is you have to put in the reps. Like, my first 60 days on YouTube, I think I posted like 30, 40 videos and started the feedback loop.
Yeah, definitely. So that's one thing I have to say is like we partnered up, or we met when you were around 1,000 subscribers, or March of 2024. And I think from that point, you're probably one of the most impressive thing I have noticed is how determined you are into understanding of YouTube, right? Of course, thumbnails is one thing, like figuring out titles or coming up with concepts is one thing, but like your persistence with understanding YouTube, your audience, and figuring out what type of content your audience actually want is, I think, what is the major contributor to the growth the channel has seen. So with that, like, when you talk about your audience, right? So sales is one of the most competitive space on YouTube. I think especially yours is more specific to tech sales, but you also talk about other areas within sales. But there are a lot of competitors in this space. How did you manage, or what do you think helped you sort of stand out from the crowd and bring more value than people who are already doing this for longer? Like, see that rate of success you have seen with the channel.
Yeah, I could go on for a lot about this, but if I had to condense it, I just think it came from real world experience. Like, again, before I got on YouTube, I had 5 years of doing this day in and day out full time before thinking about YouTube videos. So I knew what I had worked, and I had already coached a ton of people. So I knew from just real world experience that if I figured out the delivery on YouTube, I mean, I just saw a gap because I remember when I was new, struggling with a lot of this sales stuff I was trying to learn, I would go to YouTube and I just didn't like the delivery and the way some of these techniques were being taught. It was too pie in the sky. It was being taught by a lot of people with questionable credentials. I don't know if they actually practice what they preach. And for example, I'd be like, how do I open a cold call? I'd YouTube that, and the top videos would be like 18 minutes. And I'm like, how is a topic as short as how to open a cold call 18 minutes? It's because these people are adding in so much fluff. So my unique differentiator, and I literally call it out in the banner of my channel, is that I'm no BS sales training, actionable sales techniques. If you watch my videos, I just really get to the point really quickly and try and only focus on things that they can actually use, copy, and implement pretty quickly. I'm not trying to talk about pie in the sky stuff. I'm a very straight to the point. Here's what I've done. Here's what's worked for me. Here's what I've seen work for a bunch of people. Do this, say this at these times a day, and report back and let me know how it goes type content. So I just wanted to be a different type of voice with different type of delivery, even though, yes, I'm in a niche where there's so many different creators making content on how to be successful in sales.
Right. I remember like we discussing this exact same stuff is like there are a lot of creators out there who might not be legit with their content. They might not have real life experience, but I think, that's like, your experience sort of sharing actionable tips. I think you're straight to the point with the videos. You're like, you break it down very well. I think, okay, so that's one of the questions I had is formats of content. Right. So you have posted various formats of content. I think in the beginning stage, you were mainly doing whiteboard, and you also do talk head. Now you have podcast or interview type of content. But in your opinion, like what sort of works best for your audience or for yourself? And what do you think about each of these formats? Which is easier? Which is more effective? You have opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's adapted for me a lot over time. So yeah, when I started, it was more of a skill issue for me where I am for people watching, I am so like unadvanced when it comes to learning. Even this microphone I just got, like I didn't know what technology to use, what was best for recording these fancy videos. I didn't know how to edit. So I kind of just started with the phone out of necessity. I actually found that to be the hardest. I always felt awkward just looking into like my literal phone and talking. That was always hard for me. What was easier for me, what I didn't know how to do at the time, was if I was able to write something down on a whiteboard and sort of map out my ideas so that I could go from point to point, because I'm very particular in how I want to coach and deliver these things. That really helps me out a lot. So that's why I moved to the whiteboard videos. But even from there, I kind of upgraded to my favorite format now is I literally just use Google Slides, and I use Loom, and my face is on there, and I just create basically PowerPoint presentations, because again, it almost fits in with your last question too. That was a gap I was seeing where most videos in the sales niche were talking head, where most of us who grew up learning in school, we learned from PowerPoint presentations, whiteboard presentations. I like to read. I like to learn by both reading and listening. That's where I'm focusing now. If you look at my videos, is I just make big Google Slide presentations. It helps me with my delivery too, and make sure I'm hitting all the points that I want to hit on. And then, so that's main format number one. Number two is leveraging more of the podcast setup where I am on with the guests and we go back and forth. That was something I wasn't really doing the initial outset of my channel. That is another easy way to create videos and get different fresh perspective on your channel too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think how important do you say it is to, test with different formats in the beginning stage? It's like you find a format that you're most comfortable with and can pump out volume, or you test with multiple formats until you find something that works best. What would the approach you take?
I think when you're just getting started, it's important, because the hardest part is the consistency when you're just getting started. Most people, unless you're an outlier, you don't have some hit video that goes viral. And if you want to be successful on YouTube, it's from a steady state of just grinding, posting consistently, finding small areas to improve. So I think what's most important is that you just find a format that's comfortable for you. And yeah, if your audience's feedback is like, I hate this format, then maybe switch formats. But if they're okay with it and your channel's growing, then for me, that's why I really right now, I'm focusing on this simple Google Slide format. I'm sure this time next year, I'll probably have a different format that's maybe similar, but that I've upgraded. But for now, this is what's working for me. My videos are performing better than ever. The audience feedback is good. So I'm going to do this and kind of focus on this format until I identify a new format that could be comfortable, that I think my audience would find value in. And it's not like you just jump right into a new format and go all in. When I do find a new format, that if and when I do, I'll probably test it out, couple videos, see what the feedback is. And if it's really good, then I'll focus on it more. That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, that's a good approach. I think, that's something I want to try as well. But one thing you mentioned in that, as you were going over, is the time aspect. So I think that is one of the most common objections I hear from entrepreneurs I talk to, is like they struggle with time to create content. And you, on the other hand, you are working a managerial role. You are doing personal coaching stuff. You're also in partnership with coaching for other mentees, and also you manage the channel. So how do you effectively manage your time between all these, different, roles that you're fulfilling?
So yeah, you're right. I still work a full-time 9 to 5. So whenever I'm doing this stuff, it's either late at night or on weekends. Like right now, we're recording this on a Saturday. Like, you gotta love the grinds a little bit and be committed to it. Like, I take a lot of Saturdays and Sundays, and that's when I do this stuff. But I like doing this stuff. But that's why you gotta like what you're doing, and why you gotta systematize your work too. So like, there's things that used to take me a lot longer than they do now, but I only learned through the trial and error. And then the other thing is, I don't get too hard on I try and post once a week. Mondays is generally my posting day, but sometimes I just get too busy with work. I have things I need to take care of on the weekends, and I miss a video. And yeah, it's not ideal. I know I got to dial that in over time, but if I miss a video here or there, it's okay. Your audience forgives you if you're consistently posting valuable content. So I try and stay as consistent as possible. But yeah, it really comes down to systematizing your work and figuring out what topics perform better. How can I put a new spin on something that I've already shared with my audience that really landed with them? That's why I could tell people you can't make a YouTube channel on something you don't truly live and breathe, because otherwise you're probably going to burn out.
Yeah, agreed 100% there. The volume at which you were creating content also varied. I think you were posting more of shorts when you got started, whereas now it's more long form content. So what shifts did you see with that jump you made? And also, would you say quantity of viewers matter more than the quality of viewers? Like, what's your stance on that? Volume is better than quality?
Quality is better than quantity. So yeah, to break it down, I much prefer long form video style content. I think the content is better. I can get my message out in the way I want to. The quality of viewer is better. So when it came to shorts, when I started out, I think it was around, I'd made like 10 videos and, I was just starting out. My video quality was trash. What I was saying I thought was good, but like if you like my first video, I think my mic was off and I still posted it, and like little mistakes like that. And so my videos were getting like 50 to 100 views max when I started out. And then I heard about shorts because at the time YouTube Shorts was just coming out, and I posted one short from one of my videos, and within 5 hours it had like 1,000 views, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So there was a little golden era where YouTube was just pushing out shorts. They were trying to compete with TikTok. So I was focusing a bit more on shorts because I didn't understand that not all views were created equal. I would rather have 100 views from one of my long form videos than 1,500 views from a short. But at the time, the views were attractive. I didn't understand that difference. So I was focusing a lot more on shorts. And what I realized over time was that, like I just said, the quality of viewer they're more bought in, that you can deliver your message in the way you want it to actually be delivered and resonate on a video. So I've actually pivoted back to, for the last year or so, I've mainly focused on just making my videos as best quality as I'm capable of right now. I'm sure that'll continue to improve, but my channel growth kind of exploded when I did that. And that made me realize, to your point, that not all views are created equal. And I don't even think that's true just for YouTube. I think in general, short form content the views are nowhere near as valuable as the ones that come from your long form videos, because those are the people who are truly bought into your content and your value.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this is something we also have seen with clients, is a lot of testing, which reminds me of the testing we did with, like, you remember those 10-second shorts? Like, because of the repeated, views, we get higher retention, and those like blew up. We were getting a bunch of views, but also some subscribers, but that is something we tested with. But yeah, I think we eventually figured out, like, testing a bunch of stuff when getting started, and also like testing with shorts. Like, it never hurts. I think if you have a room and time to sort of create and pump these out, I think that's sort of a good asset you can leverage, especially if you're not recording it separately. You can always repurpose from already existing long form content that you do. So that's one approach, which brings me to this point of testing, right? So I think that's one part we already discussed. Like, you go heavy into testing different formats. You have tried different formats in the past, whiteboard, all that good stuff. But when it comes to like current testing, are you a big believer in data? Like, do you actively, or heavily test with thumbnails, titles, and hooks? What goes into that?
So yeah, I try and look in the data. Really, I could be doing a lot more with this. The highest impact area right now that I'm testing are thumbnails, because it's unfortunate and sad that it's the case, but like the same video, the video could be as valuable as you can make it, but if the thumbnail doesn't land, then the video doesn't perform. And a lot of people take that as, oh, my video sucked. And that's how I initially thought when I was new. And then it was like, no, it's just a lot of times you need people to click in order for them to even get the value from your content. So YouTube, this wasn't a thing when I started out, but now they have a feature where you can split test 2 thumbnails. It's actually up to 3. So that's one super high leverage activity that I've been split testing, are like thumbnails that worked. How can I improve upon them? And that's really upped my YouTube game, I think, and performance. I think there's other areas I could be looking at more. I know I hear other creators talk about looking at that first 30 seconds, how many viewers you retain, because that's another important part of the video is the hook. You can make a 30-minute video and 29 minutes of it could be extremely valuable content. But if your first 30 seconds doesn't grab the viewer, then they leave and they don't watch it. So that's one that I acknowledge I should be looking at more, but I generally just like to jump into it and record the videos and just try and do it to the best of my ability. But looking at which of my hooks when I open the video retained more viewers is something I'm starting to do. But what I tell people is don't measure to the point where you don't get burned out. Like for me, when I was trying to measure all these different variables, it just made it harder. It was too draining because, again, I got all this other stuff going on. So I was like, what's one thing that's easy to look at for me that's thumbnails, and the rest I just was like, let me just do it to the best of my ability. Over time, I'm sure I'll get to the point where I'm really starting to micro analyze, okay, do people resonate with this type of hook or this type of hook in other areas? But the thumbnails has been the big one, and that's been honestly the biggest help of working with you guys, is my click-through rates have skyrocketed from what they used to be.
Yeah, and I think like from where we got started to now, I think you have also understood your audience and so well enough that you just provide the concepts, you provide the text exactly, and we mainly sort of design it. So you have full understanding of what your audience want. I think that's one of the biggest part is like actually being involved and not creating content that you think would work, but you are sure your audience is what they are wanting. And that leads me to, that's one of the mistakes. Like I said, people always assume this is the type of content of their audience wants to watch. So any similar mistakes like that, or when coaches or creators get started, what are the common mistakes they make and they can avoid? Or if I can put it this way, like if you had to start over again from scratch, what would you do differently?
I would start like it might sound cheesy, but I would start working with someone like you sooner. And people referred it to as like pay down the ignorance debt. I was trying to do too much on my own, where if I could work with someone who had done it, who's been doing it professionally and is in the space every single day, that just accelerated the learning curve. And like take the thumbnails, for example, just by working with you, I'm able to get so much more feedback on the types of thumbnails that are working and not working than had I tried just doing that on my own. Who knows where I'd be if I was still trying to do that on my own. In the beginning, I think it's just trying to do things in a way that doesn't burn you out. Like, don't come in with these expectations that you're going to get to 1,000 subs or 10,000 subs within a short period of time, and that you have to go viral. Like, go in with the mindset that this is going to take 2 to 3 years, and then reverse engineer, like, what's a process that I can follow that won't burn me out for 2 to 3 years. Because I like the content game. I think it's easy and it's hard. It's easy in that I think we're still early. And then if you provide valuable content in even a reasonable format, you can be successful if you just stay consistent. But the hard part is staying consistent. It's almost like working out. Like, getting in shape is easy. The playbook's out there. People know if you just eat less than your maintenance in calories, you don't eat junk food, and you show up to the gym every day, and the movements are pretty self-explanatory what you need to do, it's easy to get in shape. But it's so hard to do because people do it in ways where they try and do too much at once. Like, they totally upend their diet. They try and work out 7 days a week when before they were doing 1, and then they just burn out. It's the same thing with YouTube. You can't go in like, oh, I need to make 5 perfect videos every single week. Everything needs to be dialed in and perfect. You kind of just go in with like, what's going to help me be sustainable, and just trust that you find little areas here and there, one at a time, that you can improve. It's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, that's a great point of view. I think, yeah, right. Like you mentioned, it's simple, but not easy, right? You have like, you know what to do, but like the results will depend on how often and how consistently you do that. So I think, yeah, I definitely agree on that part. Couple of more questions I have is one thing, going back to a different format of content. So as I was going through the channel, I noticed the most popular video on your channel is on cold emailing, whereas like most popular or like most common type of content or topics you cover is more on like cold calling, right? So there usually is like when we work with clients, we usually find there is that evergreen video that sort of accelerates your growth overall of the channel. So maybe this is one of those videos. How did you sort of decide or structure this, and what do you think makes a good video from a great one?
So it was really the new format update. So I always knew I had what I believed was valuable content on cold emailing, because I had just seen what I do work in the real world and taught it to many people who had had success with it. But I didn't know the right structure to teach cold email videos in the beginning. Like, with cold email, people need to see the emails. It needs to be more in a presentation where they're both hearing you talk and seeing the content on the screen. But when I was starting out making YouTube videos, I didn't really know how to do that effectively. So I was just doing the phone, and the phone wasn't as effective for the topic of emailing when I was just doing talking head videos on my iPhone 10. So that's why I focused on cold calling. But once I developed this new format in a way that the viewers would resonate with and be able to digest, that was 1. 2, if you look at the thumbnail, I think the thumbnail was a big part of it. I'd made other videos on cold emailing in that same video format that didn't perform as well, and I really liked that thumbnail. That was one where I didn't even really give your team the guidance on that one. It was more, I like this format. And if you actually look at my channel, my second best performing video is one on cold calling with that same exact thumbnail format, because I realized, oh, this worked for emailing, is probably going to work for cold calling. So those were the two main things. Was the format adjustment for email videos was a lot better than the talking head style I was doing before. And then two, that was one that made me realize how important the packaging was.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, it leans back again to testing and, sort of trial and error and seeing what works best. Yeah, I think this was a really fruitful conversation. I think there are a lot of golden nuggets viewers can learn from. One last question, like any one piece of advice you would give to coaches or creators who is watching this video, who wants to start their channel and scale beyond 10K, maybe in the next 6 to 12 months?
One piece of advice, I mean, you're not too late. I think a lot of people think YouTube is super saturated now. I think there's a lot of coaches who frankly aren't that good at coaching. And if you have unique value that you've seen work in the real world, just get started in a format that's sustainable and consistent for yourself. And just, it's kind of what I've been saying, like view it as you don't need to stall for everything at once. Just take it one at a time. How can I improve my click-through rate? How can I improve the retention on my videos? Are the longer videos doing better or the shorter videos? Which titles and topics are performing better, and kind of just taking it one by one. But yeah, you're not too late. If you have valuable content that's working in the real world, you just got to get on YouTube and be consistent over time, and you'll beat out 95% of the competition just by doing that.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's an amazing piece of advice. I think, yeah, thank you, sir, for joining in. I think this was, like I said, a very fruitful conversation. I hope you have a great rest of your day as well. And yeah, we'll check in soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Danush.